So most participants in our category of supports, which is called dayhabilitation, which is what the St. Louis ARC falls into, receive funding through the Department of Mental Health, the St. Louis Regional Center, and that is through the Medicaid waiver program. We also do take Eastern Missouri Autism Project, or EMAP, money. They can be directed to day program services. Though that money doesn't stretch very far for day program services, but we will accept that. Private pay is also an option at the St. Louis ARC. I do want to say that the Department of Mental Health is very clear that we have to charge the exact same rates with our private pay that they reimburse us at. So we do not get to set our own rates. So our private pay rates are standardized. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. Supports in our program, ratios typically range between 1-on-1 to 1-on-4 staff to participant ratio. Typically throughout the St. Louis ARC day programs, that ratio is 1-to-3. Our ratio in our LIFT program, which is our behavioral focused program, will be a 1-to-2 ratio, meaning sometimes people will have 1-to-1, sometimes it'll be 1-to-2, every once in a while up to 1-to-3, but not ever more than that. And that'll be based on the individual's needs. Some people might need higher support in the community, so they'll get one-on-one there. Others are fine in the community, but need additional one-on-one restroom support. So we are able to be flexible and give them whatever support they need. Okay, more funding. So the Medicaid waiver has 3 main categories of waivers. The most typical that you see for folks in day programs is the community support waiver. I just double checked this the other day. The Department of Mental Health still says this is a $28,000 per year cap. I will tell you they do not stick to this cap. Current base day program rates already are over $30,000 a year. So don't worry about that. You will get more than $28,000 you will to use towards a day program if you do get this funding. So typical base rates for 5 days a week day program is around a little over 30 at this point. You can also use your community support waiver for other services that you can justify the need for. That could be transportation, that could be physical therapy. There's a long list, and I'm happy to share that if anybody wants to see it, of what services are covered under that community support waiver. The other is the comprehensive waiver. There is absolutely no annual cap to that. However, this is reserved only for people needing residential services. So if an individual is not ready to move out of their natural home and move into residential, that is not the funding source that you would get. There are historically some people living in their natural home have gotten the comprehensive waiver, but that is not typical. Typically, that is only reserved for people getting residential service. The other waiver offered in St. Louis City and County is the Partnership for Hope waiver. Exceptions up to $15,000, probably even more than that, can be granted. So that is if somebody maybe wants day program just a couple of days a week. That wouldn't cover 5 days a week of a day program, but a couple. So if somebody maybe had something else going on a couple days a week, maybe we're volunteering somewhere, even had a job somewhere, and just wants day program for a couple days a week, this is something that you could apply for. And because it costs less, the waiting list tends to be a little bit shorter for those. So those are the 3 categories of waivers. You would ask for one of those if you are applying for new funding from the St. Louis Regional Office. Right now, in general, there is funding available. That ebbs and flows with a lot of factors. But right now, most people, if they can justify the need for services, are able to get that. Weights can vary, but there has been a concerted effort to clear the wait list across the state. So in general, most people with a little bit higher support needs are able to get that funding. What do I mean by higher support needs? Let me walk you through that. So, there would conduct a series of different different assessments. One is called the prioritization of need, that you will be scored on a scale of 1 to 12, 12 being the highest. The higher you score, the higher up you go on the wait list, which means the shorter your wait is for that funding. However, a lot of individuals are getting funding. Even people that are scoring well below a 12 have been getting funding recently. So if you're scoring an 8 or 9, that is not a reason to panic. You just might wait a little bit longer than somebody that scores a 12. For people just leaving school, we do recommend that funding requests for the Medicaid waiver should be made no later than January or February in that last year of school. Usually your support coordinator from the regional office won't request it before that. But you do want to work with them to make sure that that's kind of the sweet spot. That gives you time to get that funding finalized by graduation. However, again, those weights can vary depending on a lot of factors. So you also may want to consider options and alternatives should you not receive that funding in time to start immediately after graduation. And talk to the program you're looking at and figure out what that might look like as to when you can start and if they can hold a spot while you're waiting for funding and all of that.